One of the hardest parts of learning Spanish for me during my Spanish learning journey has been overcoming my fear of speaking Spanish. You know, that uncomfortable feeling that you get in your stomach when you just think about having a conversation with a Spanish speaker? Or maybe you have felt this during a conversation. Now, this is a feeling that I have felt so many times. Why did I have so much fear? Well, some of the reasons are I had fear of not fitting in with Spanish speakers that I was talking to, making grammar mistakes, sounding stupid and ignorant, saying something disrespectful on accident and offending the Spanish speaker that I'm talking to, not having enough vocabulary to express myself, not using complex enough vocabulary, not speaking with the best accent possible, not speaking fast enough. I've had fear that I am not fluent. One of the first things that have helped me overcome my fear of speaking Spanish is identifying why do I have fear in the first place, because all those different reasons of why I was fearing speaking Spanish, I actually did not know right when I first started having conversations in Spanish. The only thing that I did know was that I had a lot of fear and I did not want to have a conversation. But now, since I know why I have so much fear, I can actually tackle all of those problems individually. For example, during many of my conversations in Spanish, I have made grammar mistakes. But when I would actually make those mistakes, I would feel really ashamed of myself, and I also felt that the Spanish speaker that I was talking to thought I was really stupid because I made a simple mistake. But then now I know that that does not mean I'm stupid. It's actually the complete opposite. I am a learner, so of course I'm going to be making mistakes. Plus, it is my second language, so that is actually very impressive. And for me, I actually haven't had anybody say to me specifically that, hey, you're stupid because you made this grammar mistake, or you said estar versus said. So that has never happened to me before. So now I know that this fear is just very unrealistic and I should not be feeling this way. When I went to the Dominican Republic for the first time, I had a lot of fear because I could not really comprehend anybody and everybody was talking incredibly fast. They spoke different from the Spanish that I was more used to. So that just made me very insecure. And now I know that it was pretty ridiculous for me to put so much pressure on myself to speak exactly like Dominicans, to have their exact accent, to speak as fast as them. I had so many problems with, I don't speak as fast as them. I suck at Spanish. But obviously that's not going to be the case if this is my first time in a country and I was only there for, I think, about 6 days. There would be times where I would have a conversation in Spanish for 1 to 2 hours long, and I would still think to myself that, okay, I am not fluent because I keep making all these mistakes. So really it goes to this level of fear where I would actually tell myself that I'm not fluent even though I'm having a conversation. I have to say that maybe these things may seem like common sense to you, but for me, they have not been common sense at all. And that's one big reason why I'm talking about them right now, is because I had no idea that I had all these insecurities and that I had all this fear. And now I'm starting to understand why I've been feeling this way over the past few years. So it has taken many conversations over the past few years since I'll say from 2019 up into now, and then also doing a lot of reflection for why I've been able to actually identify all these small little details. And now I am a lot less critical of myself when I am speaking Spanish. Now this has helped me overcome fear of speaking Spanish a lot, because just imagine that when, or right before I have a conversation, I'm thinking about, okay, am I going to be able to comprehend this Spanish speaker? Am I going to be messing up my grammar? Am I going to mispronounce things? So just thinking about all these small little details already before I have a conversation, honestly, just increases my anxiety, increases my fear, and it makes me not want to have that conversation. Hence, I have avoided many conversations just by going through this whole process. But now I focus less on all those little small details, and now I just focus on what is most important, and that is communication. And actually what this does is it takes Well, it makes me not think just about myself, but it makes me think about the other person that I'm speaking with, right? Because communication is a two-way street, or at least it should be. So instead of just me focusing on, okay, did I say this right? Did I use this correct verb conjugation? Did I pronounce this correctly? I'm focusing on that other person, and this has helped me a lot to overcome my fear of speaking Spanish, because now I have less fear because I am more interested in the conversation. I'm more interested in learning about that other person that I am speaking with. One example of this is when I was in the gym last year and I heard this one woman playing music, and it sounded like Spanish, so I was very curious to know what type of music that it was because I was not sure. So I went up to her and I started to have a conversation, and she told me that she was hondureña, that she was from Honduras, and then she also told me that she was catracha, and I was like, what is catracha? I had no idea what that was, and she just told me that that is what they call themselves. So catracha y catracho. So for me, that was very interesting. So I wanted to learn more. So I just kept on asking more questions. And then she also told me that the music from her country is punta. I absolutely love this conversation that I was having with this Spanish speaker because I was learning so much, and I love to learn more about the culture of different Spanish speaking countries because there's a lot that I do not know. And also during this conversation, guess what? I more than likely did not pronounce everything correctly. I'm pretty sure I made some grammar mistakes, but I could not tell you what those were because I was focusing on the conversation. I was just focusing on communicating, making sure that that other person could actually understand what question I was asking, and then just listening very intently. So I was just very into the conversation that I was having. And I couldn't even comprehend every single thing that she was saying to me as well. But again, I was not stressed out about that. I was not thinking about that. I was just trying to understand to the best of my abilities. Another experience that I had is when I went to my first ever Dia de Muertos event last year. So I knew nothing about this Mexican holiday whatsoever, but I talked to this one woman and she was explaining to me what this holiday was all about in Spanish, and I did not really understand everything that she was saying. And again, I'm pretty sure I was making a whole bunch of mistakes, but I can't tell you what those were because I was just enjoying the conversation and I was just super fascinated with learning about this holiday. As you can tell, I'm incredibly excited about sharing these stories, about these conversations that I've had in Spanish, because for me, they are just amazing memories and I have learned a lot. So that's why just enjoying the conversations that I'm having with Spanish speakers is such an amazing way for me to be able to overcome my fear of speaking Spanish. And again, it took me a long time to make this connection and realize that, okay, the more that I'm interested in this conversation I'm having, the more that I'm focusing on the other person and asking them questions and learning about them, then I start to forget more about all the fear that I have and forget the insecurities that I have in that moment because I'm just so focused on just communicating. Another thing that has helped me overcome my fear of speaking Spanish is actually technically not overcoming it, but it's facing this fear head on and doing what is uncomfortable. I've had to realize that when it comes to developing my speaking skills and just getting better at communicating in Spanish overall, I've had to just face my fear of speaking Spanish and do what is uncomfortable, which is speaking. One example of this is when I was at the gym again last year and I heard this group speaking Spanish, but I had no idea where they were from, and I knew that if I was going to start a conversation with them, that more than likely I was not going to understand anything and I was not going to feel very comfortable having the conversation. But I knew that it was going to help me overall just having a conversation with them, even though I did not understand everything that they were saying. So that's what I did. I went up to them and I started to have a conversation, even though I could not understand probably 98% of what they were saying. I did my best, and I was fumbling over my words. I had a lot of fear, but I was still confronting this fear head on, and I just did my best to communicate in Spanish. Now, they were from Cuba, and of course, I had never met any Cubans before in my life. I had never heard that accent until I spoke with this group of Cubans. And I don't know about you, but just going up to a Spanish speaker that you don't know know, and starting a conversation is already difficult. Now, I think this group, there was about 3 or 4 Cubans there, so that was even more challenging. But again, I just had to have the conversation even though I was uncomfortable. And another good example of this is with my Instagram account. So before I started my YouTube channel and everything like that, I was not speaking in Spanish on Instagram, but now I make sure that I push myself to do it, although it is very uncomfortable because I'm not used to speaking Spanish in front of a crowd, like out in the public. So that's why I've been just doing that as much as possible so I can confront this fear of speaking in front of people and making mistakes. So that has been something that I've been doing a lot. And also, I've been doing my live streams in a little bit of Spanglish. So I speak English, then I also speak Spanish. So for me, at first, the very first time that I did it, it was very nerve-wracking. Even right now, it's still very difficult. But the more that I do it, it actually gets a little bit easier. But at the same time, I still have some fear, right? Because it's a live stream, and there are no edits that can be done to edit out, any mistakes that I make at all. Confronting my fear of speaking Spanish has helped me to realize that my whole journey over the past few years to overcome my fear of speaking Spanish does not mean that this fear is completely gone. So I can still have conversations in Spanish, even though I still may have a little bit of fear, or, I have a fear that I'm going to mispronounce something, I'm going to make a mistake, or I'm not going to have the best accent. So although that is present, I can still communicate properly. I can still enjoy a conversation no matter what. Having a fear of speaking Spanish can be a really big problem, especially if you are trying to become a fluent Spanish speaker and you're trying to develop your overall communication skills when you are speaking Spanish. So I hope that a lot of the things that I have mentioned in this video will help you be able to better manage that so you can reach your goal. Also, if you need help with having better conversations in Spanish, I have created a free Spanish conversation blueprint just for you, and you can head to the link in the description box of this video so you can subscribe to my email list and receive it. Muchas gracias por ver este video y hasta luego.